of the deed of transfer of functions, which was executed a couple of months ago, the NMS has been deploying my staff or seconding my staff from the county government of Nairobi to NMS illegally without consulting. This has affected a lot of my senior staff, Mr. Chair, including chief officers, directors. So I've not been able to access some of the information, some of the responses to these queries, Mr. Chair. So those are some of the reasons, Mr. Chair, why I'm not in a position to proceed today with the proceedings of this committee, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Governor Sonko, is it your submission to this committee that you are unable to bring any documents for presentation before this committee?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm unable to maybe work closely with my officers or interact with my officers, and I've had some majority of the witnesses. They are in the finance department, environment department, whereby some of these queries are from this particular department which I've mentioned, Mr. Chair. And if I interact with them, Mr. Chair, I think my bail terms, I'll be interfering with my bail terms and might be remanded in custody. So, but at a future, maybe at a later stage, Mr. Chair, after the issues are addressed, for instance, the issue of illegal secondment of staff to NMS, it was before the court ruled in our favor. We were told to comply within the 90 days to regularize all those illegalities, Mr. Chair. So I'll be willing, maybe in future, to attend the committee at a later date, Mr. Chair, and address all the issues which have been raised by the auditor's office, Auditor General's office, Mr. Chair. But for now, Mr. Chair, my hands are tied.
But I see you are the Chief Officer of Finance here. Is it Chief Officer of CEC Finance?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I think he's just decided to come and join me, but he just came alone with he brought himself here. But I'm not supposed to talk to him, Mr. Chair. Because I'll be breaching my bail terms and it is risk to me, Mr. Chair, not to be remanded in custody the rest of the time. Maybe he's a witness in my case, I'm not sure, Mr. Chair.
So you decided to come here despite the fact that you don't have access to those documents?
Yes, Mr. Chair, because Mr. Chair was once a senator, and I respect this house, Mr. Chair. I know this is a house of credibility. I've just decided to come and I explain my case before this honorable committee, Mr. Chair.
And also you've heard any comments?
Thank you.
Senator Uchila Yako, followed by Senator Kangata, Senator Cherege, and Senator Vedama Lakina.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, two issues. The work of this committee is oversight, and it's a constitutional duty that cannot be disabled or cannot be prevented by any hand or organ of government. It has to go on. However, I sympathize with what the governor is saying about his inability to attend, but I want to ask the governor this question and perhaps also suggest something. Governor, when you received the invitation to come before this committee, because it's our constitutional duty to oversight how funds for Nairobi are used and how the people of Nairobi get their services, did you check with God or with the DPP's department to get the advice? Because we really must know what is going on in Nairobi. Did you have opportunity to inform DPP and your lawyers that Senate requires you? Because I remember because as to how you will balance compliance with Senate invitation and also your bail terms.
Because this matter is peculiar, I will allow the governor to answer each senator by presentation. Yes. Governor.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I made several efforts, Mr. Chair, to be allowed to access my office so that I can access the documents on the queries raised by the Auditor General's office, Mr. Chair. But I've been successful, Mr. Chair. And as we are speaking, Mr. Chair, I'm also in the High Court challenging the same decision emanating from the ruling of the Chief Magistrate of the Corruption Court. And Mr. Chair, some of the efforts which I've been making, I find that because we follow the judiciary protocol. Once you lose a case or a ruling is not in your favor from the Magistrate Court, the law allows you to go to the next level. So we went to the High Court, Mr. Chair, and we applied for some of the High Court judges who had presided over the matters of Kiambu and Samburu county governments to recuse themselves from hearing my matter, because already they had made previous decisions in the Kiambu and the Samburu cases. I'm happy, Mr. Chair, to report to this committee that the matter that was, before you have a High Court bench that presides over the matters pertaining to corruption in cases of counties. This is the Anti-Corruption High Court Division. And before Justice Mumbi, Mr. Chair, I wish to report to this committee that she she disqualified herself from presiding over my matter. We also went to Justice Ngenye on that particular division. She also disqualified herself from presiding over my matter. That division has 3 judges, Mr. Chair, Justice Onyango, Mumbi, and Ngenye. So the 2 judges who presided over the matters for Kiambu and Samburu disqualified themselves from hearing my matter. Now we have another judge, Justice Onyango. We are appearing before him. Maybe, I think, I've got that date. I'll confirm it later. Early next month. So once he disqualified himself, because we are appealing against the bail terms barring us from accessing office, Mr. Chair, the file will be taken to the Chief Justice so that we can have a fair 3-bench judge. And we are doing this, Mr. Chair, so that we can be allowed to access office and interact with our staff, so that we'll be in a position of responding to these queries and other duties or mandates which I'm supposed to discharge as the governor of this country. So we are making efforts, Mr. Chair, and I'm sure very soon we shall be allowed to access office, interact with our staff, and come back to this committee to respond to the query raised by the Auditor General, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chair, and also thank you to the Governor from Nairobi. Mr. Chair, I think it's an issue that calls for a considered ruling, which we call us maybe to retire, and we come back and we give a very considered ruling. And the reason is that, one, we may want to render something that is going to stay with us for posterity. I'm imagining the same issue will be raised by another governor, and therefore we may want to ask ourselves, okay, what happens if we get another governor in the same situation? From where I see, the governor raises 2 issues. Issue number 1 is the issue concerned with the subsidies, and the issue number 2 is about access to documents, which are so crucial in our examination of this case. On preliminary basis, I'm not so sure I will be persuaded with the issue of subsidies. Reason being, when you look at these documents, they pertain to a criminal case and also a petition seeking now to vacate the orders that have been given in those criminal cases. And here we deal with issues of accounting. However, there's one point he raises which is very strong, the issue concerning the term that was given by the court, the bail terms, which make him he can't access documents. And because of that, and also the kind of documents that he has given us are quite voluminous, and also our precedent that the main house has been giving concerning Senate discussing matters which somehow are related with the judiciary, we may need to retire. We look at these documents, we look at the precedent, we look also at best case scenario in other jurisdictions, and we give a more considered ruling to his application. And I'm not so sure the time we have will be enough for that, but on a preliminary basis, one point he has raised appears strong, but another point concerning subsidies, I'm not yet convinced on it. Thank you.
Senator Obaidamo.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I'm a bit concerned about governance in this country because I've looked at the Constitution and I had the governor stating and citing it for 187.2b, which is the one that gives him the powers to remain as governor. There are other silent issues when you hear the governor speak, and these are things which are out in the public domain, and these are things that we are struggling with here in this house in terms of revenues to the counties. We are all aware that there was a transfer of functions which was carried out between the county government of Nairobi and the national government, hence the creation of NMS. I'm yet to be convinced on how NMS is funded, because we've got the issue of DORA and we've got the issue of CARA. Now, I am inclined to give the government time to be able to go and settle these matters, so that when we come in and ask the government questions, as per Article 187.2b, he can then be able to give us substantive answers. Because if we now go in and examine even the documents that we have, they will be half-baked, because we will not have been able to receive full information, because the government has clearly stated that he cannot be able to access his office. So my concern, Chair, in line with what Senator Kangata has said, I don't think we can proceed with this meeting, because we need to be able to retire, think about it, look at Article 96 of the Constitution, which mandates us to protect the counties and the government, look at the articles of the Constitution that stipulates on how cooperation between both the national government and the county government is to be carried out, so that even though the courts have come in and they have brought in a ban, then we can be able to know how this judiciary duty will be exercised. So, Mr. Chairman, I don't even think there is any point of us moving further, because these are really weighty issues that might require this committee to even write to NMS. We need to know how NMS is going on in terms of funding. We also need to know what we do, because we are three arms of government, Chair, judiciary, the executive, and the legislature. We are supposed to oversight. Now, if the judiciary has made it impossible for us to oversight this, how did we proceed? So, Mr. Chairman, these are not things that we can be able to deal with in this meeting with the governor, and I actually feel sorry for the governor. And I think this might need us to really spend time with our legal team so that we know how to proceed further.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe two issues. I've seen the government has given us various rulings, and I did study criminal provision number 25 of 2019, Moses Lempulan versus EPP, on challenging from big access to office. And one of the aspects of ruling in that decision by Justice Mobe was a sitting governor, despite exercising executive powers, cannot access the office. And in argument, Chair, he raises an issue where there is a deputy governor. There is that ruling that there was an assumption of deputy governor, but we know Nairobi is unique. There is no deputy governor in place. So the perception was, when the governor is not in office, they assume that the delegation of executive authority will go to the deputy governor. Another issue that Justice Mobe raised in that criminal division number 25 of 2019 was that access to office was supposed to be authorization from the EACC when a sitting governor who has been charged in a court of law and barred from accessing to office could not access. So Governor Sonko, maybe for the benefit of the committee, because we want to assist Nairobi residents and you to ensure you effectively deliver, you could also kindly share with the committee either in written or in any form that you have tried to work with to ensure that you contact EACC or the investigating officer to be able to access your office. And I think it is very important, Chair, that we get that perspective. Another issue, and I think I agree with Governor, the Article 187.2b, that all responsibilities still rest with him, and even in that ruling, the Justice Mobe raised that a governor is still a governor, despite that they can't access the office. So I think it is very important we sympathize with you, but also, Chair, we can't proceed because we cannot proceed because Section 5 of the Public Finance Management Act is very clear on who should be able to raise these issues when it comes to answering issues of accountability. Finally, Chair, Nairobi City County is so unique, but it's one of the counties that we are seeing a clawback, a systemic clawback of fourth schedule on all functions of government. Article 241 of the Constitution provides the role of Kenya Defence Forces. One of them is to protect integrity, the territorial integrity. Another one is to assist in emergencies.
Point of order.
Yes, you want to interrupt you?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Point of information.
Point of order. Yeah, thank you. Sorry for interrupting my very little senator, but I don't know, Chair, whether you have followed his last train of thought. He has veered towards mentioning an entity which is not before us. I think the best case scenario, from where I sit, you need to tell me his out of order for mentioning an entity that is not before us. What maybe you could probably ask, Mr. Chair, is ask His Excellency the Governor to give his views as a closing remarks or about his relationship with NMS rather than giving evidence from the European.
And Senator, we shall proceed to prosecute the matter which is before us. Any other body represented here with name numbers. Proceed.
I think, Chair, Senator Kanata is preempting what is in the public domain. I am not questioning what National Nairobi Metropolitan Services is doing. What I'm just raising is what the constitutional provision is. That Nairobi is unique because it is a unique county because now we have two entities that run Nairobi County, and therefore it will affect our functions. And I'm just raising Article 241 by saying the functions that the people who are in charge now of NMS should be doing as provided by the Constitution. I don't think there is an emergency in Nairobi City County, so that you need another entity that will run Nairobi City County. And maybe the relationship, maybe finally.
I don't intend to make this meeting points of order, but it's certain what's your
I
point of
think,
order?
Chair, you ruled that Senator Cherage should actually give his opinion on the matter before this committee. Matters before, matters is mentioning of NMS and county government is a matter that may pursue political line here, he can do it outside, not within this meeting. I thank you.
But you should also say that because I didn't know that this committee is political. Unless, no, I'm quoting the Constitution, Senator Dulu. I'm not quoting anything. I'm not quoting politics. I'm just quoting. No, what I'm just saying, Senator Chair, just in simple terms.
I'm on a point of order.
Address the chair. There's a point of order.
I think the best way to move it forward. Our governor has tabled some documents indicating that he is in court with NMS. An opinion relating to that relationship is actually something that is being entertained in court. My view is that we should restrict ourselves to this issue of adjournment and the weighty decisions that we need to make. If we start discussing NMS and Nairobi County, yes, it's a very nice document, but I think it will be a convened into matters that are in court.
Let me rule again.
Point of order, Mr. Chair, before you rule.
Yes. Awula.
Chair, I think we are in a difficult situation which requires all of us to put our mind to it, because it's a situation which will stand precedent for other engagement of this council. And the issue at hand here is the issue of the governor not being able to proceed because the court rulings has tied his hand. He cannot avail the documents to this committee. So it's for us to sit down and decide as a committee which way to go. Here, I would rather, instead of conversing it here, maybe we take a break, we sit as members and see the way forward so that we can make it easy.
Can I finish?
Point of information, Mr. Chair.
Can I conclude?
Mr. Chair, point of information. Point of information.
No, can I let him conclude, and then I will give you another opportunity to reply. Let him go. When he's finished, you will have a right of reply.
Chair, I was just concluding.
Let me again request you.
I have had, Chair. I have had your input.
Thank you.
I think Senator Ledama was also request that we invite NMS. I didn't see any point of orders. But anyway, it depends whether you are politically correct. Finally, what I wanted to say, what I want to say in conclusion, Chair, is that I agree with the Governor with those reasons advanced, but my request is that the effort trying to get those documents, because Governor, when you look at, I think economic crime subsection 62 there, the argument has been, if you have a criminal corruption case, it's 24 months. So I don't know whether you will be requesting this committee to go to retreat for 24 months before you come back with documents after your matter is determined, or what is your request? Because I agree with adjournment, and we hope that also as you work hard to get documents so that we can be able to assist in oversight as per Article 96, it will be very easy. But I invite your committee, your legal team, and it is good now we have the County Attorney Bill Act, which you as truly sponsored, that you now have something in place. They should advise you on this ruling, especially Criminal Revision number 25 of 2019 of Governor Moses Lomula versus OPPP, so that they can put that document in context, so that when we retreat write our report, we can be able to assist you to make progress. But it is so sad and it is very unfortunate. I hope this is not a way of going back the functions and the gains that we have made under the pollution. Thank you, Chair.
Governor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, let me start with Senator Ledama's issue on NMS. Mr. Chair, I concur with Senator Ledama and Senator Cherigai that the Constitution, pursuant to Article 96, empowers this committee and the Senate in general to protect the interest of the county governors, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, the issue of NMS has already been concluded in court. So it is not sub judice for us to discuss this issue. However, the issue of the bail terms imposed by the courts barring me from accessing my office is sub judice because it is still pending in court. Mr. Chair, I wish to table just an additional ruling before Justice Helen Wasilwa, right, case number 52 of 2020, which was concluded and judgment delivered on, I think just a couple of weeks ago. The judgment was delivered and NMS was declared as an illegal entity by the court. There is no appeal that has been filed by NMS. The ruling was delivered on 25th of June last month. The NMS has not appealed this particular ruling, Mr. Chair.
Just can the governor give us citation of that court case that NMS has been proved illegal? Thank you.
The intention of that case, Mr. Chair, we are not the petitioners of the county government, even myself as the governor of Nairobi. I'm not the one who went to court. I think it's a member of the public. If I peruse this ruling, the petitioner was okay on Tata. NMS is an initiative, Mr. Chair, of His Excellency the President. And there is no way I can fight the President's initiative, Mr. Chair. I support the President, and Mr. Chair, I also support the NMS, Mr. Chair. Because the beneficiaries of this initiative, Mr. Chair, are the great people of Nairobi who voted for me overwhelmingly, Mr. Chair. So if we say that
Governor,
yes,
I think we are now trading on dangerous lines. We have come to this committee requesting for an adjournment. Anything beyond the adjournment is extraneous. I would like you to confine your remarks to your inability to present yourself properly before this House or before this committee. Any other issues beyond that, I think you'll be trading on dangerous grounds. So be advised.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, these are questions raised by committee members of this honorable committee.
Now, the issue, I've ruled, Governor, I think stay on course. Just convene and convince these members that there is need for us to grant you the adjournment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maybe I'll have an opportunity to cover that during my closing remarks. Because the Constitution empowers you as senators to protect the interests of the counties, Mr. Chair. And here there is an illegality committed by an entity called NMS.
Governor, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
And the matter has been presided over by the...
You can
Thank you.
rely on that in your final...
Much obliged, Mr. Chair.
The decision has not been made.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Point of information.
Yes, Senator Lu.
I think, Governor, we are not stopping you from canvassing NMS and county government challenges that is in public domain. We have discussed this matter of NMS and county government at length as a Senate. And even this morning we said this arrangement is going to affect the work of this committee. So at some opportune time, the committee can discuss how to deal with this matter and also Senate itself. So we'll give you an opportunity, both yourself and NMS, because of accountability and auditing mechanisms that are governed by the law in this country. So I think for now, let's restrict ourselves to the matter before us, which is an adjournment motion or other request that you have made. Then those other matters, we can invite you at our own time as a committee, then you can both come and argue your point. Thank you.
Chair, just allow me an point of order. I think, Mr. Chairman, I don't think we're being fair in terms of listening to the concerns of the governor, who is constitutionally mandated to be the head of an institution. We have called the governor here to be able to answer audit queries. I don't really think that we should be gagging the governor on what he should say. You know, Mr. Chairman, I am particularly concerned. We passed the DORA as a Senate. The DORA divides money between two arms of government, two governments, the national government and the county government. So I think really, if the governor takes the opportunity before this committee, which is given powers by the Constitution, including power to call for evidence, I think we should be welcoming. We should be giving, let me just finish, please. Let me finish. We should be listening to what the government is saying, so that when we retire, to be able to think about the way forward, we can then be able to give a substantive ruling. Because I really think we're being unfair to either the governor or even whatever information we get. Mr. Chairman, Article 125 gives us the power. We can call NMS. We can call NMS to come here. But the issue that the governor is raising, in my view, we should listen to what the governor is saying, put it on answer, so that when it comes to us understanding about the relationship between these two, government functions or administrative arms of the county government, now that certain functions have been transferred, we will be more informed in terms of coming up with a decision on who is responsible or with what funds.
Let me clear points of order. Kenyatta, do you have a point of order on this matter?
Yeah.
Yes. So please proceed. And then Ochila Yako.
Let me.
Again, we finish. And now give a minute.
Chair, I will ask you to do the following kindly. Chair, there are two issues we are canvassing. On the issue concerning adjournment, it appears a good case has been set for adjournment. Because of those reasons, we shall be canvassed by members and also by His Excellency. Concerning NMS, I ask you to do two things. One, you restrain members from this side from commenting on that entity, but you can give His Excellency very few minutes as closing remarks without going much into the details, his comments on the relationship he has with NMS, taking into account NMS is not here, and therefore we shouldn't really go into it, because surely it's like we are just hearing one side and NMS is not here. But it should be just short, closing remarks as we step out. That would be my view.
Chair, Ochila Yako.
Thank you, Chair. Starting by asking a question and also underscoring the fact that oversight is our constitutional mandate. Now, the governor has sought an adjournment. I think that is the substantive issue that is here. My understanding is that before venturing into many remarks, very many suggested many opinions or many issues we should deal with this matter of adjournment. So here is my suggestion. One, Governor has given us here several documents that are important, and his argument attracts a lot of sympathy and need to be heard. My first suggestion is that I would have appreciated if the governor had made this request in writing. Nevertheless, it is granted, but so that we make the considered ruling, it would be important for us to get their formal request to adjournment, because these reasons and the reasons underpinning the request for adjournment in writing from the governor, which is very important, because we are going to make. Chair, can you protect me from Senator Lekina? I do not wish to engage in.
Please, can you give an opportunity?
Yes.
And I shall be very ruthless now.
So, Senator Lekina, can you listen to me or we whisper with you out there as my friend and understand one another? Because we want to make a decision that is going to guide this committee and this relationship with the entities that we oversight. We need a common request for adjournment, we can give him an opportunity to submit it, because it will contain these reasons. It will contain these reasons. He can deliver that by close of the day, so that we retreat as a team to look at it and make a decision that is going to guide this committee and Senate. That is one. Number two, the request for adjournment does not mean that the governor does not want to adjourn. It is requesting for adjournment so that we find a way of facilitating his production of documents that we need. So in our decision, we need to get from him information as to what is impeding access to these documents. And then we will consider how to facilitate and enable our oversight functions. Because if we just make a decision that the government cannot adhere, then we will have shot ourselves in the leg. So we must find a way of doing that. So, Chairman, in conclusion, I am in total agreement with Senator Kanata that we need to just address the issue of adjournment and how we will enable Senate oversight Nairobi and also defend and protect Nairobi from other activities or other affairs.
Senator Maruma, and then let the Vice iterate on that.
Thank you, Chair. I think, Chair, we are in agenda number 4. Consideration of the audit report of Nairobi County Executive for the years 2015-16, 16-17, and 17-18. Are we able to prosecute that agenda? The answer is no. Why? Because the Nairobi Executive has not given us responses. It has not given us documents. The governor has requested adjournment. Now I think that is where, or that is what we should be prosecuting. The reason why NMS is coming in is because NMS has taken the staff for Nairobi County. I think that is the only point that you can mention NMS. The other point, if you want to discuss NMS, is under any other business. So my submission here, Chair, is that we cannot proceed because we do not have documents. And in way of reiterating what the rest have already said, let us retire, maybe even now. Let the governor take some tea, and then we come back and make a resolution. Or, Nairobi is not even far. Or, we can retire another day, maybe tomorrow, after we have our meeting, then give a substantive ruling after we have consulted with our lawyers. But as it is now, we are flogging at the doors. There are no documents. We can't proceed. I submit, Chair.
Chair. Well, thank you, Chair. I think I agree that as we empathize with the governor, I don't want to say we are sympathetic with him. I want us not to force him to be dragged in what he needs to say, because the committee will be able to look at the resolutions that they request. So in my own opinion, Governor, if some of the reasons or some of the challenges for you not able to access documents or to fully address our agenda as provided for today's meeting, then you should be able to highlight all the challenges that you are facing, so that we are able to get to the bottom of this issue. Because, Chair, this is a unique scenario in Nairobi. There are other governors like Samburu and many others, although there is no NMS in those areas. The question should be, let us also understand from the governor's perspective on the challenges that has caused that issue. Secondly, I think my colleague has alluded on the issue of redeployment of staff. It is not only being able to access the office, it is also some of these staff have been redeployed to Nairobi Metropolitan Services. So all these issues, we can't avoid this issue of NMS because one, some of the issues that we need to audit are some of the issues that the staff that have been deployed, and the governor has made a very critical point, that he is not even aware the law was not following in the deployment of those staff to NMS. So I think on that issue, Chair, I think on that issue we need to agree and allow the governor to raise this issue. This is the only forum the governor will raise. He cannot raise in a public baraza in Bangali or anywhere else. This is the right forum he can raise. And finally, Chair, Article 96 on the principles of separation of powers. This committee enjoys the powers of the High Court as the members know. We should be allowed to do our work without interference from anywhere or feeling that there are decisions that has been made anywhere, Chair. So I agree, let us allow the governor. My final submission, Chair, is that we don't need to hold the governor for long. Put his case, he has put his case very well on adjournment. We allow him, Chair, through you, to continue looking for those documents, do a formal application, as Senator Dr. Jila has said, do a formal application and state the reasons, because this issue might crop up in future, even in this committee. So as part of precedent, we want to set it should be in a formal way so that even the House, when we report back to the House and to treat, can be easier. So if it's given 14 days or 7 days or 2 hours, then we can proceed from there. Thank you, Chair.
Now, let me be fair. Senator Gura, Senator Duro, then I'll come to you, Senator, because you have already made contribution.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I think members have conversed this issue, and at least we're getting to a point that we have a governor who is barred from office, that who still the court says is the governor, and we have to oversight, and you have to oversight the same office again. So I think, and this situation, I will still insist, this situation affects other counties. The committee is already aware the governor Samburu could not appear and he raised similar issues of not being able to access documents. So we have to make a very considered decision, taking into account all these issues. Chair, I think we still deserve to sit down as a committee, then come up quickly on a ruling on this particular request, and also going forward, then what does it mean? What are we grounding the governor from here?
Senator Duro.
Thank you, Chair. I think first let me thank the governor for Nairobi and the team, because we had other governors who were in similar scenario, who have even refused to appear before this committee. And that clearly shows the respect you have for the Senate, because you've been a senator before. The case of Samburu, I think we are summoning him here because he was using the court excuse to appear before this committee. So clearly, I think we must thank you as a committee and also as a Senate to have agreed to appear before this committee. Number two, I think the chair, the matter before this committee is an adjournment motion that was requested by the governor, which is genuine, because there is no way that we can proceed with this matter when we cannot be able to access the office. And I think in the spirit of separation of power, where the Senate has actually canvassed this matter in several cases, where the work of the Senate should not be tied by any other house. But in the same event, he cannot be able to access those documents, which clearly means the work of the Senate and also the role of the governor is curtailed. And for me, we need to discuss as a Senate and as a committee to see how we can actually deal with this matter. Because one, we have to hold the governors accountable and also respond to audit queries. Number two, their hands are also tied by the courts, because if he's been given a mail term that says he should not access the office, that clearly means he cannot be able to access the office and also respond to audit queries. Again, you know, the matter of service delivery to the people of Nairobi is very critical, because there are a lot of issues that are pending that needs to be resolved. And I think I have seen the ruling by Justice Mumbi, especially looking at the Deputy Governor's position to deal with this matter. But I think as far as the practice is concerned, most of these issues cannot be canvassed by the Deputy Governors, because the Governor himself is the one who can be able to come and respond to these matters before the committee. So, Chair, finally the issue of NMS. I know the Governor has been a senator. He knows the procedures of Senate and how matters should be dealt with. I would request the Governor, if it's not himself, somebody should bring a petition to the Senate on how to deal with the matter of NMS and county government. In that way, we can have a substantive agenda to deal with the issue of NMS and county government of Nairobi, so that we can actually canvass this matter, because it's, as he said, it's out of court now, a decision has been made, but as a Senate, we need to hear you and also really understand the challenges you are facing when substantively the matter is before this committee or the House of Senate. I thank you. But finally, on the adjournment, I think he has a genuine reason. There are proposals he has to do a write-up. I think he doesn't need to do a write-up because we are on Hansard, which is very clear. I think for me, to give him adjournment is very critical so that we can look at it as a committee. I thank you.
Senator Kila.
Thank you, Chair.
Let's not repeat ourselves.
Chair, I concur with Senator Grilled, and I just wanted to clarify to my colleague that what I was whispering is that I don't really think we need a formal request put in writing, because all these proceedings are answered. But having said that, Chair, one, I concur with Senator Grilled that we should definitely give the Governor some time to be able to sort out these issues, but we've got a responsibility and a duty as a Senate, and particularly as this committee. Because my concern is this: we have an entity running the county government of Nairobi. The person who has got the constitutional mandate to be able to run the county government of Nairobi is here saying he's crippled. So if we let this thing loose, we will be failing on our duty of oversight as per Article 96 of the Constitution. So this is a matter that it will be very, very important. And what I would request here is that we may also need to invite the Treasury, because we need to know how is NMS funded. You know, because if NMS is funded directly through the Exchequer, we will then be doing it against the law. So if we are a country that supports democracy, if we are a country that promotes devolution, if we do not pursue these matters diligently, then of course we might as well say there's no devolution in this country. So, Mr. Chairman, this committee is a very powerful committee. So my concern is this. This is an opportunity that the Governor has gotten to come and explain his frustration. We need to understand what does 187.2b means, what does 189 mean in terms of cooperation between the two levels of government. So that as we proceed, the auditors have got serious concerns about how funds were utilized in Nairobi County. Who is going to be responsible for that? So, Mr. Chairman, as we adjourn and as we sit down, we really need to put our heads together so that we can be able to set a precedent, you know, that will be able to lead this country in a direction that everyone will be proud of, that when there is the Constitution gives the two levels of government an opportunity to cooperate, we need to be able to understand what it really means. Because in my view, NMS is an administrative function. And I don't even see how, although we are given under Article 125, let me finish, 125, to be able to call any witness.
I thought when I tried to discuss about NMS, there was a ruling that stayed. So unless there is a preferential treatment when somebody talks about with another person, chairman, you cannot be making ruling in passing. The ruling should apply to all members. Unless other members are more special than others.
I agree, Chair.
Yes, you make your complaint.
Chair, you are right.
Fine,
Chair is very right.
let me finalize on my issue.
Senator Oredama, Olekina, I made a ruling. And let's not repeat, and I already warned before, let's not repeat and repeat and repeat the same things we've said before, because you have answered. I think what is before this House, this committee, is the adjournment motion. And I think this converse around that motion. Any other things I rule earlier on are extraneous to this committee. And I think we should stick to that motion. Senator Kangata.
Can I finish,
Because I can finish without level game.
Mr. Chair, can I inform the House on a very critical issue before he proceeds? Just a point of information.
Governor, I will give you an opportunity to...
There is a very important ruling, Mr. Chair, which I never tabled, pertaining to what has been raised by the Honorable Senators. But it's very important at this stage if I table this ruling. Maybe it will guide you in the ruling, Mr. Chair.
Okay. What is it that you want to do?
Mr. Chair, I never tabled this ruling. It is a case by Petitioner Okiya Omtata against what has been raised by Honorable Senators. Okiya Omtata.
You have already raised it.
I have not tabled it.
Nobody's before us here.
No, I table only on my access to office rulings, not on NMS. And because
We have it here.
for Justice Helen Osilwa, here we table it.
Yes.
So that ruling, Mr. Chair, is still in force. Nobody has appealed against that ruling.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, we must respect the rule of law going forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Lama, can you finish your comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I conclude by saying the following two remarks. One, let us do our job diligently, and let us allow freedom of speech in any forum so that we can really be able to carry out our oversight function. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Chilayako.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I'm sorry for coming back and forth. I am of the school of thought that this is a request for adjournment. But the reason I've come back is on the issue on the need to put it in writing. The governor did not just ask for adjournment. The governor expressed frustration when he attempts to access his office. We need to look at the reasons around that so that we are able to assist the governor navigate that in our duty so that we carry out our oversight. Because this, I have indicated, this is not just a request for adjournment. Adjournment, he has earned the right to have an adjournment because we cannot proceed just like it has been pointed out by Senator Maruma because there is no response for us. But since oversight is our primary duty and this matter will keep popping, we need to find with specificity the nature of difficulty he has in his own writing and how he seeks our help, because that one cannot be canvassed and finished now, yet it will form part of the ruling that you or we will make as a committee. So it is important for us to get those issues, particularly even the ones that relate to NMS and the difficulty he is having with NMS in writing, so that we know it and we will make a decision as to how the future will look like. So that issue of it being made in writing is not regarding the request for adjournment. It's regarding the future.
Chair, should the considered ruling be made today? No. I think I would propose we give ourselves 14 days or 21 days so that we not only consult internally, but we also consult maybe our other lawyers, including the legal department of Senate. That's number one. Should the governor come when we are delivering that ruling? I'm not so sure. I doubt. I think maybe we may need to see whether we need to decide on that issue when we are making that ruling, whether it needs to come or maybe a representation can be done. On the issue of NMS, I strongly urge you, those of us on this side, because we are like a quasi-judges, we should be very restrained to discuss that issue, because other issues shall be expressing our views. maybe Governor can mention in person that issue, but most of us who on this side, my brother Mekina, my brother Gerard King, no, I strongly urge you to just you are running for now.
Point of order. Point of order, just a quick. Point of order. Point of order. Even as you chair, even as we retreat to rule, the only aspect of staff deployment to NMS, that is what we mentioned. I don't know why Sonata is becoming overprotective. Maybe we'll say later when we retreat.
Why, I may suggest that during our retirement you may convince each other. I think that's the way to go. Yeah, Senator Duro.
I think, Chair, with all due respect to my colleagues, we are going round in circles. We must take a decision. I think the governor has given his position as far as the frustration is going through in accessing his office. That is the substantive agenda before this committee, which, as I said earlier, is also affecting the work of this committee and also the work of Senate. So it is up to Senate to see how we can deal with this matter, because it's not only facing Nairobi, it's also facing Samburu and also Kiambu. Yeah?
And all the other future governors are going to be affected by the same decision.
Now, as far as NMS is concerned, he has a right as a governor of Nairobi to mention the challenges he's facing. This is an opportune time. When you give him an opportunity to speak, he can express his feelings. But for Senate to substantially discuss this matter, you've been a senator governor, you know the procedures of Senate. It's important to actually unlock the current challenges you're facing in Nairobi, to have something before the Senate. That will help you. But for us to talk about the budget frustration and all that, it's just politicking around it. It will not help you as a governor of Nairobi to solve the challenges you are facing. I thank you, Chair.
Now, Governor, you are the man.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Chair, let me start by saying this. I support the NMS because this is an initiative by His Excellency the President. And Mr. Chair, I remember very vividly, just a couple of weeks ago, we were with the President in a function at Arboretum. And the President told me, support NMS. I cannot fight the President. Mr. Chair, I want to tell this House that I don't have any problems with NMS, but I want, pursuant to Article 96, as I stated earlier, which empowers this House to protect the interests of the counties, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, we want this committee to oversee the process of harmonizing our relationship with NMS, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, the NMS is doing a good job. But everybody who is supporting NMS is talking about Article 187 of the Constitution. They just talk about the first part of this Article 187, which mainly talks about the transfer of functions. That is, the government, any government can transfer functions to another level of government. But Mr. Chair, towards the end of this same article, and I want to repeat the Article 187 2B, it talks of the constitutional responsibility of the transferred functions. It rests with the county government as per Schedule 4 of the same Constitution. Mr. Chair, we are operating under a lot of blackmail because of this NMS, which has been declared as an illegal entity. But let me say this again, I want to repeat myself. I'm not here to outshine NMS. They're doing a very good job. I want to repeat again that I'm supporting the President towards this initiative. I'm supporting the Major General body towards this initiative. But Mr. Chair, I want law to be followed. Because when we signed this deed of transfer of functions, Mr. Chair, a couple of months ago, we met well, myself and the president, because I'm not in office, I don't have a deputy governor, and I remember I was summoned by the joint committee, the legal committee and the devolution committee. I expressed myself why I took time to appoint the deputy governor of Nairobi, because there was no legal framework. And just a couple of days ago, Mr. Chair, His Excellency the President acceded to the County Government Amendment Act, a bill which is now law, that governors should appoint deputy governors within 14 days, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, going forward, I'm seeking for the indulgence of this committee and the Senate in general. Nairobi is the capital city of this great country of ours. And the reason why I'm supporting NMS, I'm not in office, I want the people who voted for me overwhelmingly, Mr. Chair, the people who voted for Jubilee, ODM overwhelmingly, to get good service, to get service, in terms of good services, in terms of service delivery, Mr. Chair. So I want my point to be quoted. I want to go on record, Mr. Chair. If we don't address these issues now, Mr. Chair, we are going to have a problem. On the issues, Mr. Chair, raised by Senator Ledama, on the funding of NMS, that is illegal, contrary to Section 5 of the Public Finance Management Act, Mr. Chair. Recently, Mr. Chair, I refused to accent to the Nairobi City County supplementary budget, whereby in any supplementary budget, Mr. Chair, in any county, the supplementary budget originates from the executive of that particular county. But Mr. Chair, the way we are operating in Nairobi City County, Mr. Chair, we are operating under a lot of blackmail. If we tell them, just follow the law, I'm ready to comply, I cannot fight the president, I cannot fight even that general, he's a military, I don't have those powers, Mr. Chair. But I tell them, let us follow the law, let us follow the constitution. We are being intimidated with impeachment motions, we are being intimidated that we are going to be thrown out of office. Mr. Chair, I'm here to support the present initiative. I want Nairobians to get a good service delivery. I'm there to support, and they're doing a very good job. But let us follow the law. For instance, Mr. Chair, let me give you a very good example. All the counties in Kenya have been allocated with their normal monthly allocations or disbursements, if I may put it, from the exchequer. But Nairobi, to date, we have not been given our allocation for the last 6 months, 4 months, if I may put it, around 4.6 billion. Simply because we are being forced to disburse over 3.5 billion to NMS, and they want to pay pending bills on our behalf, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, when I took over office, Nairobi, we had pending bills totaling to 64 billion. And the first governor, Mr. Chair, to form a pending bills committee, Mr. Chair, whereby we managed to reduce our pending bills from 64 billion to 20 billion. But today somebody comes with hearsay allegations that we are only paying lawyers, we are not paying the small-scale traders or SMEs. Mr. Chair, I've come even with our statements that we are paying all SMEs, Mr. Chair, but these allegations which have been maybe brought by the Director General that they are seeking for a presidential directive that pending bills are taken to NMS, that one is not in the law, by the way, Mr. Chair. So I'm just seeking for the indulgence of this committee, and I've noted some of the problems we are facing, Mr. Chair, and I've said I'm raising this issue because we want this committee or the Senate to harmonize these working operations between us and NMS. And I want to repeat myself, Mr. Chair, I am not opposing NMS. I'm not opposing the President's directive. We just want law to be followed, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, if I may raise, I've mentioned about the Section 5 of the Public Finance Management Act. It is illegal for us to give money to NMS directly. There is a saying, Mr. Chair, by the youth in Kenya or in Nairobi. They are saying legalize marijuana or cannabis sativa or bangi. Me as the governor of Nairobi, I'm saying legalize NMS. be an entity under the county government of Nairobi, then we give them the money. Mr. Chair, we respect the president. We respect the rule of law. Today the president is in power. Maybe after 3 years, questions will be raised. Why did you give money to NMS and it is illegal? Nitatafuta maliliko, Mr. Committee. Why did you do that? It is illegal, Mr. Chair. Yeah. Let the national government legalize this NMS entity to become an entity or a body under the county government of Nairobi, then give them the money. Because I want the people who voted for me, the great people of Nairobi, to benefit. So there is no way I can tell them this, but let us follow the law, what the law says. And Mr. Chair, when we summon NMS here, if there is those provisions in the Constitution, also let us summon the CS Treasury. Why is he blackmailing us? Why is he telling us, give NMS their money for us to give him money for salaries? That is very wrong, Mr. Chair. It is our constitutional right for us to be given our monthly or annual allocations so that we focus on service delivery, Mr. Chair. We only transferred 4 functions, not the entire 14 functions. We are left with 10 functions, Mr. Chair. And I want to compliment the President's Excellency. Because the other time, when I refused to accept it, the Nairobi City County financial, supplementary bill, Mr. Chair, because they have taken everything. They have taken 15 billion. Yeah. What will you do with the 15 billion, Mr. Chair, in 30 days? Yeah. Nothing. They're only talking about they want to pay for pending this on our behalf. Mr. Chair, I'm still in politics. Mr. Chair, still in politics. I know BBI is removing Nairobi from the equation of the counties. I might want to go and find Machakos, Mombasa, or Kilifi, or even Kwale. What should I tell those people, Mr. Chair? People will say, oh, we should on Nairobi, so we end up. So I'm not here to outshine NMS, but they should also not outshine me, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, on the ground, I have constructed or recapited or done of 100 roads, which I need to launch. But they're stopping me from launching these roads, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, under the World Bank Initiative, I have done, Mr. Chair, I've implemented almost 95% of the World Bank projects. We had this funds in 2013, Mr. Chair.
Governor,
I'm almost through. I just need 1 more minute.
cool down.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, for that. I'm a bit emotional. Let me reconstruct the
Address and finish.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, what I'm saying, in 2013, we allocated funds by the World Bank, billions of shillings, under the NMS projects, which comprises of all the metropolitan counties, that is Kajiado, Machakos, Kiambu, Murang'a, and ourselves as Nairobi. In 2013, these funds were not put into proper use, Mr. Chair. But immediately I took over, Mr. Chair, I ensured that all the funds you are granted to Nairobi, over 8 billion, were utilized in a proper manner, Mr. Chair. And that's why today, Mr. Chair, we have new fire stations in Nairobi City County. We have over 4 modern markets, Mr. Chair, in Nairobi City County. We never had floods because, Mr. Chair, we have addressed the issue of the drainage, Mr. Chair. So, how they are operating, they want to paint me in a negative way that I'm a failure, which is very wrong. So when we summon the NMS, Mr. Chair, I'm humbly requesting we should also summon the Major General to come and explain why we are not working together. Because I just donated my functions. Mimi sijashindwa kufanya kazi, because I want to be helped. I want my people to get good services in terms of service delivery, Mr. Chair. Sijashindwa na kazi. The other day, Mr. Chair, we were going to launch, we were going to commemorate 100 days of NMS. We don't have a problem with that. But they are implementing my manifesto. These are projects which I initiated myself. But you saw, they sent 100 police officers to stop me from joining the president when I launch these projects. For instance, the Pangani housing project, the Babu housing project, those are my projects. But the way they want to take control of these projects is as if nimeshindwa na kazi, they are pushing me nje, nionekane mimi sifanyi kazi. So, Mr. Chair, I'm seeking for the indulgence of this House, pursuant to Article 96, we have to intervene, Mr. Chair. And the court has declared NMS illegal. We have to respect the rule of law. We let us compel the national government to make NMS to be a legal entity. We'll give them money. We'll work with them. I want to be supported, Mr. Chair, but I'm not a failure. I've not failed. Yeah. Come on, you failed, Mr. Chair. We do not have roads in the estate. Over 100 roads recapitate. Nwaru Road, Matopeni Road. So many roads, Mr. Chair, countless. In number, I don't go to a lot of time. But over 100 roads, Mr. Chair. Markets, I've done so many things for great people of Nairobians. But when I talk about Mambo, it's clear I'm a failure. I'm not a failure, Mr. Chair. And I'm ready to work with the President, national government, and NMS without any intimidation, but law must be followed, Mr. Chair. And I'm seeking for the indulgence of this honorable House to intervene with Nairobi affairs, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Governor. We'll have you. A few points to bring to focus. When I look at the financial statement of 2016, 2017, the exchequer releases were 14 billion, 23,560,861, and then transfer from other government entities, and then your own generated revenue was about 10 billion, giving rise to 25 billion, 784,140,036 shillings. When I look at the financial statement of 2017-2018, where you have been in office, the exchequer releases went up to 15 billion, 402 billion, and the own generated revenue came down to 10 billion, 157,594, 130. Total 26 billion, 224,411,900,000. This is a lot of money, and I take cognizance of the fact that when you talk about the GDP of this country, Nairobi contributes almost more than 60% of the GDP of this country. When I look at the law that is before us, Article 96, Sub-Article 2(1), the Senate represents the counties and serves to protect the interests of the counties and their arguments. What? And their governments, yes. And I believe that's the basis upon which you are addressing us on that particular Article 96(1). Then, of course, 2 is the legislation. 3, the Senate determines the allocation of national revenue among counties as provided in Article 217 and exercises oversight over national revenue allocated to the county governments. So that national revenue which has come, and I think we are the recipient of the recent dollar allocation, and we are now doing CARA, which we have agreed upon. So the element of oversight comes in. And therefore, it's the responsibility of this committee to do that oversight. And therefore, you are required by law to present yourself before this committee and be able to present the books of accounts as done by the Auditor General and explain some missing gaps or agree on certain mitigating factors so that we can move forward. You have stated to us here that you have been unable to access your records from Nairobi County government because of court orders. When I look at the article which you have cited, Article 187, 2, and I'll read 2A and B. First of all, the heading is transfer of functions and powers between levels of government. 2, if a function or power is transferred from a government at one level to a government at the other level. A, arrangements shall be put in place to ensure that the resources necessary for the performance of the function or exercise of the power are transferred. And B, the constitutional responsibility for the performance of the function or exercise of the power shall remain with the government to which it is assigned by fourth schedule. We are very alive to this, but this is a matter which has arisen out of court ruling. And this is a matter that you are canvassing before the court. And therefore, since the matter remains sub judice at this stage, it will be very difficult for this committee to make a ruling on your submission. Don't interrupt. On your submission on this matter. However, because we are aware of what is going on, you are permitted to submit to this committee either in the way of a petition or in the way of everything else that you want to do before the committee to the Senate, and you are very well briefed about how Senate functions, and then this matter will be referred to the relevant committee for adjudication and for discussion. And then you will have an opportunity to appear before that committee and explain yourself the way forward. But as for the matter which is before here, us of adjournment, it's quite clear from the evidence that we have given before us on this matter that there are a number of rulings that are barring you from appearing in your office in City Hall. And we wish to grant you that leeway, that until such a time you are able, because we cannot determine the court process and the court timings. But I think if you want the matter to be again canvassed, it will be the way of petition in the government. And we grant you the adjournment, but please present the documents that will enable. On our own motion, as this committee, we shall be retiring to examine the merits and the demerits of what has been presented to us, and we will take advice from our legal team to be able to understand how to move this agenda forward. But I also advise that you take another route of getting a petition to the Senate to be able to address some of these outstanding issues. I thank you.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
You cannot put a point of order the chairman.
Point of information then.
Yes, yes.
Mr. Chair, I've stated earlier, the only sub judice issue is the issue on barring me from accessing office. The issue on NMS, if I may put it that way, has already been concluded by court and a judgment has been issued. And just the other day, when the General was on record that he's not appealing against this decision. So this issue is not sub judice, and I want to repeat it again, Mr. Chair. I'm seeking for the indulgence of this committee and the Senate in general for intervention in this particular matter. You have to protect devolution, Mr. Chair. Otherwise, we are all failing, Mr. Chair. Thank you, I rest my case.
No, Chair, I will rule. The matter is still alive. You are at liberty, just listen, you are at liberty to present your petition. Through your presentation today, we shall also pick some of the elements that you presented to us. Now that you went to court on your own volition, and you have been given a court verdict, this committee does not enforce court orders. This committee can only encourage you to follow the methods that are allowed through legal mechanisms in the enforcement of court orders. We can only discuss other issues because it has ramifications to other future county governments that may fall in a similar circumstance. For instance, we have a case before us, Samburu, which is gone the same way. We have Kiambu, which is gone the same way. Therefore, we have a duty as Senate to address ourselves on these matters and any matter that may arise in the future. So decide.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just last more point on the mandate of the Senate, pursuant to Article 96, Mr. Chair, which I wanted to also to go on record, Mr. Chair. You just mentioned about the billions the check has been releasing to the counties. Mr. Chair, I want to just to bring it to go on record of the Senate that the national government also owes us over 246 billion. Various government agencies, Mr. Chair. When maybe you're looking into this matter, Mr. Chair, we also want you as Senate to pick this issue, how the national government is going to pay us the 236 billion. Because the President is always talking about clearing of the pending bills, we are ready for that. But also, Mr. Chair, here in Nairobi County, pia ni pesa, si makaratasi. So we are appealing to this House, Mr. Chair, also to assist us in getting this debt the national government is owing us, 236 billion, to be cleared. This is a lot of money, Mr. Chair. You can even also lend or give other counties to akopeshe pesa wao wanasulipa. So we are seeking for the indulgence of this House, Mr. Chair, to intervene in this particular matter. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Governor, you are again advised that if you want to seek advice from this committee, the only way we can pick that element if it appears in your financial statement. It doesn't appear anywhere in the financial statement other than what you have just said today. It doesn't appear anywhere in the financial statement that you are owed money by other entities. What it is appearing here is the pending bills that you owe money to other entities.
It is part of the pending bills, Mr. Chair.
Chair, point of order, Chair. Chair, I think you have granted the adjournment.
Yes.
And the governor has been advised that he can access the Senate through a petition. This further engagement is a strain on our time, a strain on the governor's time, and we should move in the direction that you will. Otherwise, Governor, we are waiting for your petition.
Yeah, just a few closing remarks.
Yeah?
A few closing remarks.
So, Governor, thank you for appearing. One thing I must say, that we honored our invitation to appear in this meeting. You've not shun us out or you should not shun away. You accepted to come and present the matter that you presented. And as our rule, I think the matter remains there, and you have now 2 avenues to pursue, and the ball is in your court. Therefore, adjourn this meeting.
Yeah. Just before you adjourn.
To the next, we hope, I will ask the members to remain behind.
Just before you adjourn.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. I think, Chair, when the governor, now that you've given the governor what he asked for, I think it is important for us then to decide what we need to do next. The relationship between these two entities are very important because now the auditors have come here, they have raised issues which we've not been able to converse on those issues because of this strenuous relationship between the Nairobi County government and NMS. My prayer, Chair, is that I think it will be important that we pursue on our own volition as a committee a process that will clearly define the relationship between NMS and the county government. Number 2, it will also be important for the citizens of this nation to be able to know how functions have been, the ones which have been transferred, how they're being funded. The Constitution is clear on that. So if we just leave it like that, then the Constitution will just be there as a mere document. So Article 187(2)(a) must be fully exercised. Because then, when we're fighting for money to go to counties, what money are we sending to Nairobi County government?
I think, Senator Olekina, the transfer of resources belongs to another committee. This committee only looks at the expenditure for the resources that have been appropriated to the county governments. So let's not canvass issues outside the mandate of this committee. I think our responsibility is oversight, and I have cited the necessary elements that will go into it. But there's no harm in having a joint meeting between the Committee of Finance, and fortunately within this committee, it is the Vice Chair of the Committee of Finance, Senator Chila Yako. He can pick it up and be able to present it as a matter which is happening. And again, there are other institutions that will handle this matter. The intergovernmental relations, these are where issues are sometimes canvassed and a solution found, particularly a relationship between the national entity and the county entity. Because these are really, what do you call it, personal relationships and how you want to relate with one another. If you try to make it legalistic, and then it meets all the hurdles that the legal process takes in order to unlock that situation. I belong to the Committee of Reconciliation, and I think if I were to advise you, not in this forum, I would request you to get for another avenue of reconciliation. Since you fully support the NMS and you support the agenda of the President, I think that reconciliation element has a role to play. But as I said earlier, we are going to again look at it because we need to make a decision on how to handle future cases that arise out of this quagmire. Thank you. I'll ask the committee to remain behind. Governor, you are allowed to now. Thank you very much, by the way, Governor, I'm sorry, we didn't offer you tea, but you are free to join this lunch, which has been served, and I think it's almost, it's lunchtime. So you can take lunch, Governor.
Maybe you can, where is the bar, Mr. Chair? The bar for consent.
What?
The bar.
Well, there is no bar facilities here.